Welcome to Beyond the Document, the podcast from Formpipe where we look to lift the lid on everything that is output, document and customer communication management. Beyond the Document is a monthly podcast, and this episode is the first one we've recorded face-to-face, where we're discussing core modernisation of banking systems with our good friends at Quantum 6. So who better to join me to talk about this than Quantum 6's Chief Client Officer, Martyn Wallen.
Hi Ben, and really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today about core transformation and core modernisation. Just a little bit about ourselves. So I'm Chief Client Officer at Quantum 6. We've been operating for about 18 months now. We're a small boutique independent advisory and consulting business in the core transformation space. So we're vendor centric, but we are completely independent, and that's a real key value add in terms of what we provide. Sure. We operate a fractional resource model where we sit client side, so it's all about providing the right people at the right time. We're not there to compete with the systems integrators. We're there to sit client side to help manage the systems integrators, manage the vendor ecosystem, but also to help the systems integrator manage difficult clients, because the stats don't lie. 60 to 65% of core transformations go wrong because of client-side issues. So it's not because the software doesn't work, and it's not because the SIs can't get them delivered. There's always a collective, an association or blame where a core modernisation go wrong. But a lot of the time, it's down to client-side issues why these programs fail.
Yeah, sure. I can imagine. And also, it's worth saying that today is the first face-to-face episode of Beyond the Document. So I also want to put it on record and thank you for inviting us down to the City of London.
That's a pleasure. And it's a lovely day to be here.
It's been a good day, yeah. I think moving on from your introduction there as well, I think one thing we need to accept is that a core element of core modernisation is taking those older legacy systems and moving them to new technology. But as you've just touched upon, this isn't just about technology. We need to look across the whole organisation, at products and processes, and also I think the marketing function of the banks, because that's what gives them that competitive edge. And sometimes we're up against well-established organisations, existing large banks, or those really new agile startups. So you must see a lot of that through the services that you provide.
Definitely. It's so critical, Ben, to bring the organisation along on the journey. And what I mean by that, it's both the business and the IT. And it's, again, critical that you've got a communications plan in place. You've got commitment from the business and from a BAU standpoint to support the modernisation program. And what I mean by that, it's not about keeping the lights on versus, and engaging and supporting the 2B world. You have to do both at the same time. And often we see a lot of friction when a bank or an FI embarks on a core modernisation and they haven't got that buy-in from the business to release them to support the project, because they're under pressure to support the BAU. So it's really, really important that they're set up right from the start. I think where the market's shifted a little bit for us, and what we're seeing maybe going back, say, the last 5 or 10 years, is that many FIs are now looking sort of at the core modernisation more around how can we enhance what already exists in the organisation. So I think gone are the days of rip and replace and all those horror stories, right? I don't think we need to mention the banks, but we know who they are. Sometimes there may not be an opportunity to enhance because, it may be end of life for some of the technology in the bank. But there are other opportunities around building greenfield. But you then have to consider some of the other challenges. So the appetite for risk in terms of, how do you manage the migration? You've got service level challenges in terms of customer experience where they may exist across two systems. And then you've got the business process, cost challenges, marketing, all of those departments that exist. How do you operate those? But you've also got the costly factor of dual running for a given period. So it may be a less risky approach, but you do have to think very carefully about building that new greenfield bank and at some point getting off the old onto the new.
And do you find then that part of the service that you guys get involved in is educating the bank to kind of acknowledge where they are on that journey that they're going to go on? Is that part of what you get involved in?
Absolutely. A lot of the advice that we provide and where we ideally want to be engaged is right up front. So helping to define the business and the technology strategy, helping to validate the target operating model. But the key thing is to make sure that they've got a very strong business case in place that's underpinned by the transformation driver. So everybody knows what good likes and they know what the outcome needs to be, that's really, really critical.
Yeah, I know when we talk to end clients about these projects, it's an acknowledgement of the resource that they need to bring in. It's not all about our resource, it's their own team and making them available.
Absolutely.
I think that goes into that really critical point, because you've just mentioned it, but I also listened to an interview with somebody who was talking about doing this without breaking the bank.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're not talking financially, they're talking about the existing business that's going on.
Yeah. And so again, what we're seeing is a lot of organisations looking to break the programme down. So rather than look at a £200-300 million project that's going to be delivered over 3 or 5 years, nobody's going to sign up for that anymore. No CXO is going to sign up for that, and nor the business within the bank willing to wait that long. So it's about having that ability to deliver incremental business benefit. That's business agility, it's operational streamlining, it's cost consolidation. One of the ways that the organisations are looking to do this is, I'm giving you one example, externalise product and pricing. So uplift the core. Some people refer to that as hollowing out the core. I'm not overly keen on that expression myself, but you uplift the core, so you're simplifying what's there, the plumbing that goes into the bank's kind of, it's their ecosystem as such. You uplift, you give the business a lot more agility in terms of what they need to do in terms of launching products, fit quicker, better pricing, being able to compete with some of those greenfield banks that have come in, focus on certain maybe business lines like SMEs, and they're eating their breakfast, right? So how do they compete? So that's what they're looking to do, is uplift, and then at some point you can address the core if you want to replace one of these days, because you've simplified it, but you don't have to do it all at once. So it's all about taking more of a progressive approach to the modernisation.
And just on that point, do we also need to be mindful that there will be an impact to business as usual? So does that need to be factored into the financial plan of the project as well?
There will be an impact in terms of the amount of change that you can accommodate in the existing world versus what you want to build in the new. So where you are focused on trying to move to a more updated, a more flexible banking solution, something's got to give. So you do need to keep the lights on, but it's really key that you're not affecting customer experience. I mean, that's really, so what can you kind of hide in the background is absolutely key, but it's very much the focus of how do you get off the old onto the new.
Yeah, okay, I'm seeing this recurring point here, because it'd be naive of any organisation to think that you can go through such a transformation and maintain maybe 120% of the budget that you had last year. So it's challenging people really senior within the organisations to consider that when embarking on the journey.
Yes, yeah, and again, if they've got those key transformation drivers, clearly outlined at the start of the programme, underpinned by both business and technical strategic initiatives, which are smaller outcome-driven pieces of work, if they're aligned against a budget, against an outcome, then these things can be tracked, the benefits can be realised, and it gives the business confidence to say, we've delivered the first 6 months, right, we're now into the next cycle, and they're happy to continue. What we're finding is, bank, as I say, they're not up for this, a big monolithic project where they're going to sign off a £150 million project and they'll get something delivered back in 3 years.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah. And I guess, I'm delighted to be a face-to-face. The reason that we couldn't do it was COVID. So it's worth touching upon the impact that COVID has had. And as we start to settle down into the new world, it's worth acknowledging that COVID has advanced digitisation. It has speeded up some of these projects that may have previously been left till 24, 2025, whatever. And I've also seen on a personal level, in my parents' generation, I've seen a lot of people move and had to accept that they're moving away from branch networks to online banking or telephone banking, and even mobile banking for my father, which was a big thing. So with that in mind, to ensure that we deliver that consistency in service, the look and feel, the security, regardless of the channel that people are using to engage with our brand. I mean, how do we do this when we're marketing to existing and also new clients?
Yeah, it's been really interesting the last 2 years, and on that topic, Ben, it's absolutely been top of the agenda for the last 2 years, and it's all about how to digitize and what do we do as an organisation to evolve and move forward. I saw an interesting quote a few months ago. It was from the head of the digital at Bank of America, and it really, really resonated with me. And he said, it's not about the digital strategy, it's about how you incorporate digital into your business strategy. So every bank's got a business strategy. It's how you bring digital into that. And that for me really hit the nail on the head. So we again, in the line of work that we do, we go and talk to lots of FIs and banks, and they say, we want to digitize. But when you ask them to describe what that really means, they find it quite difficult. So bringing that element of how do you bring digital into the business and also the technology strategy is really key. The other thing that I think is an area, particularly some of the larger banks struggle with, is kind of how to innovate at pace. So at Quantum 6, we absolutely share the view that the bank of the future will be assembled and it won't be built. Okay, so that may be creating a bank by bringing many fintechs together, right? So many best of breeds. Or it may be an area where you're looking to create new customer journeys by looking at areas such as embedded finance. So for those that don't know what embedded finance is all about, it's embedding a customer journey or a user experience that may not even start or finish with the bank. It may cut across a number of different partners or parties. But what it is delivering is a financial transaction as part of a user journey. And that's becoming very popular in today's market. But what does that deliver? It delivers what the client needs, it delivers what the bank ultimately wants, and it delivers what their partners want. Yeah. So the market's definitely evolving.
Do you think that's more of a challenge as well to those larger multidiscipline organisations, where the smaller ones who are focused on one particular area can be quicker in the way that they adapt?
Absolutely, yeah. They can be much more nimble. They've got no legacy to have to worry about. And what we're also finding with coming back to some of those bigger banks is even where they have settled on an agenda that they do want to innovate, it's how do they, from an assemble the bank standpoint, how do they navigate that vendor landscape, right? How do you identify the right solution that addresses your organisation strategy? It operates in the market that you need to operate. It delivers what your clients need you to do, because there's so many vendors out there that will all profess to be best of breed in their certain business lines. Yeah. So how do you really find the right one for you that's maybe already integrated with the rest of the ecosystem that you've settled on? So that's a real challenge. But innovation, we're seeing some of the larger banks turning to partnerships to allow other organisations to come in and do that innovation for them.
Yeah, okay. And as a software vendor ourselves, speaking from our own position, we always appreciate people who qualify what's right for them themselves rather than just following what the other people have done.
Yes.
So I always like people who are brave in taking those decisions.
Yeah. And I think, just back on the innovation piece as well, that ability to progress at pace through that entire life cycle. So this is about prototyping, vendors, market assessments, proof of concepts, target design, development, and then deployment. But also being brave enough that when you've got to that point of prototype, as an organisation, to say, we don't think this is actually going to work for us, so we'll now circle back and start again, rather than continuing to deliver on something that actually isn't going to deliver the business benefit, but you're concerned that you've already spent, a few months and so much money that you actually don't want to circle back. Yeah. So fail fast and be willing to keep trying and keep innovating until you find exactly the right solution.
And that brings it back to an earlier point that you made, that you need to have that senior buy-in. You need to have people who are brave enough to take that decision if they fail fast and say, no, we're going to do this the correct way.
Absolutely. Empowerment and making sure you've got the right processes in place to say that we have a process, we believe in the process, and we'll run the process. And if organisations come out the back of that and it's a green, we move forward.
Superb. It's a great topic. I feel like we could talk for hours on this one. Just bringing it back to your own organisation and bringing this podcast to a close. What's next for Quantum 6? What's happening the rest of the year for you guys?
We are. It's been fantastic for us so far. We had a vision that there was a gap in the market that wasn't being addressed, and for us, that's turned out to be true. Everyone we talk to about really what we stand for as being independent, being small, being niche. We're not a bums on seats business per se. We have initial conversations with people. More often than not, they lead to ongoing engagement. I think in terms of some of the topics that we covered today, some of the key things I'd like to sort of leave you with, Ben, and the listeners would be, it's really imperative that you do have a well-defined business case that is supported by the key transformation drivers. We've seen this time and time again. We've seen an organisation spend over 100 million, not realising they had the right transformation drivers in place at the start, which led to a wrong vendor selection process. Look to exploit the assets that you already have where possible. So that's back to my modernisation piece. This can enable faster time to market, it can de-risk the program, but it doesn't mean to say you can never change the core. It just allows you to simplify now, maybe deliver some early business value, and you can revisit the core at a later date or as and when the business case will suit. Sure. Be sure to consider the broad range of options that exist in the market. And what I mean by that, you've got a vast ecosystem out there of fintech players, but you've got a massive shift in terms of service models now that are being offered: SaaS, BaaS, infrastructure as a service. What's right for you as an organization? And that could be a mix of both. Yeah, so you need to look across the entire landscape in terms of what fits you as an organization and what's addressing your transformation drivers. And then before you start any transformation or modernization, real key thing this, ensure you have the right pillars in place for success. So is the organization and structure in place to deliver? Do you have the right governance? Do you have the right communication? And that's bringing all parties to the table. So it's not just about bringing your main SI to the table. It's about your main SI, it's your own delivery team within the bank or the FI, is all the third parties that are involved on delivering this modernization. They all understand what good looks like and they understand what the outcome is. Because without that, you're going to fail to deliver. Now, as much as that may all sound like project management 101, and it really does, we still see many organizations today that have kicked off programs, and before you know it, they've got 10s, 15, lots of people on site delivering, really without understanding what they're doing.
Surely they're looking at you guys to bring in that guidance, though. That's what they're engaging with you for.
Absolutely, and that's where we sit. And then I think the final thing I wanted to say really is it is about bringing the right people together at the right time. So if you think about the way that FIs are procuring technology today, 10 years ago, you may have gone to one core banking vendor and bought a full solution front to back. Mm-hmm. Today, they've done very much a mix and match of best of breed. So why shouldn't you buy your consultancy and advisory the same way? You don't have to go and sign up a 10, 20 million pound consulting deal with somebody. Why not say, I want to use these people because they've got the right individual for me right now that we need to engage with. So it's really not about the numbers of consultants you've got. It's about having the right people on the ground that give you every chance of a successful.
And I guess within that, there are some real niche areas where you need to have a specialist for maybe a shorter period of time who can add a lot more value.
Absolutely. Enterprise architecture, great example. You need an enterprise architect at the start, looking at your target operating model, testing the 2B architecture. But they don't need to be engaged for the first 6-9 months of a program. They need to come in and support design authorities, for example. But you may find that, with and I'm not going to name names, you may find with some of the larger consultancies, they will allocate an enterprise architect for the first 9 months of the project. But are they really needed full time? And this was where the flexibility in Quantum 6 really comes to the fore, which allows us to do this fractional resource model, which some of the larger organizations would probably struggle with.
Well, thank you for not naming and shaming there as well. So that's been fantastic, Martyn. Really appreciate your time and fantastic to meet you as well.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Document. And thank you again to Martyn Wallen of Quantum 6. You can learn more about the great work that Martyn and his colleagues do at quantum6.com. And you can learn more about Formpipe by following us on LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm Ben Saxton. Catch you next time on Beyond the Document.